Imagine standing with me on a hill, high above the beautiful city of Florence. You're in a place where 1,000 years of history, art, and faith all come together. We're about to explore one of the city's real treasures, the Basilica of San Miniato al Monte. So, let's get started. You know, the poet Rainer Maria Rilke just captured this place perfectly. Because of its amazing spot overlooking Florence, San Miniato is the very last place in the city to be touched by the setting sun. He called it the city's last smile. And that one beautiful image, well, it really captures the spirit of everything we're about to see. So our tour starts right here, on this hill that kind of smiles down on Florence. But to really get why this place is so incredibly special, you have to know the wild and honestly pretty grisly legend that gave it its name. Okay, so the story goes that Miniato, or Miniato, was Florence's very first martyr. Around the year 250, he was beheaded down by the Arno River. But this is where things get, well, legendary. Get this. They say he then picked up his own severed head, walked across the river, and climbed this very hill to die. A dramatic story? For sure. But it's that act that turned this hill into sacred ground. And that single act of martyrdom kicked off centuries of devotion. First, a little shrine was built. By the 700s, a chapel stood here. But the incredible basilica that we see today, its story officially begins in the year 1018. So we're not just looking at a building. We're peeling back layers of history stretching back 1,000 years. And that story really begins on the outside. The first thing you see is this absolutely magnificent facade. And it's not just beautiful, it's like a storybook written in marble. It's truly one of the great masterpieces of Florentine Romanesque architecture. Look closely, because every single detail here has a meaning. You see that striking green and white pattern? That's made from brilliant white marble from Carrara and that deep green serpentine stone from Prato. The 5 arches down below? They're a nod to early Christian basilicas. And the geometric patterns up top were inspired by ancient Roman designs. And right there, smack in the center, is a stunning 13th century mosaic of Christ, with the Virgin Mary and St. Miniato himself. Now, look all the way to the very top. See that copper eagle clutching a bale of wool? That's the symbol of the Arte Ducale Mala, the super powerful guild of wool merchants. They're the ones who paid to finish the facade back in the 13th century. It's a perfect reminder that here in Florence, faith, art, and big business were always connected. All right, let's step inside. The moment you walk through those doors, your eyes are immediately pulled down to the floor. It's like this incredible marble carpet, just inlaid with amazing patterns, stretching out and pulling you deeper into the church. And we know exactly when this incredible journey began. The very first panel you see has the date right on it, 1207. Just think about that. For over 800 years, this floor has been showing off this incredible mix of geometric patterns and fantastic creatures from a medieval bestiary. The craftsmanship is just breathtaking. But as you walk further down the nave, you come across something, well, something you would never expect. A massive, intricately detailed zodiac. So you have to ask yourself, why in the world would you find a zodiac, a tool of astrology, on the floor of a major basilica? Well, this wasn't just decoration, not at all. Some scholars call it a philosophical machine. It was basically a medieval model of the universe. It was meant to connect the heavens up above with the earth down below. It even mapped the astrological signs to human personalities. And believe it or not, it also worked as a solar calendar. Every single year on the summer solstice, a beam of sunlight shines through a window and perfectly lights up the sign of Cancer. How cool is that? Okay, as we keep going down the main aisle, we arrive at 2 of the church's greatest treasures. They're 2 completely different chapels, and each one is a masterpiece from a different moment in the Renaissance. Right in the center, you can't miss the Chapel of the Crucifix. It was designed in 1448 by Michelozzo, who was a favorite architect of the powerful Medici family. It was built to hold a very special crucifix, one that, according to legend, miraculously bowed its head to a knight as a sign of forgiveness. And when you're there, make sure you look up, because the magnificent glazed terracotta ceiling is a signature masterpiece by the one and only Luca della Robbia. Then, over in the left aisle, you'll find the Chapel of the Cardinal of Portugal from the 1460s. Comparing the two is like watching the Renaissance evolve in fast forward. Michelozzo's chapel is all about that pure, early Renaissance elegance. But the Cardinal's Chapel, built as a spectacular tomb, is this powerful statement of the High Renaissance. It was a true collaboration of the greatest masters of the era. Now, one of the most unusual and just plain cool features of San Miniato is its split-level design. The main altar area is raised way up high, and it sits directly on top of the ancient crypt. So to get to the church's most sacred spaces, you have to go either up or down. First, let's head up the grand staircase into the raised presbytery. This whole space feels set apart, you know? It's enclosed by this beautifully carved marble screen and pulpit from way back in 1207, and your eye is just immediately drawn up to the half-dome of the apse, which glitters with a massive mosaic from 1297 of Christ the Redeemer. Okay, so from the light and the gold of the presbytery above, we're now going to descend into the quiet, cool darkness of the ancient crypt. This is the oldest part of the entire church, and it's a space that just feels hushed, timeless, and absolutely steeped in history. Down here, you are literally standing in the 11th century heart of San Miniato. It feels like you're walking through a forest of columns. There are 38 of them in total, and no two are alike. Many were actually salvaged from ancient Roman ruins. The central altar? That's believed to hold the actual relics of Saint Minias himself. And if you look closely at the ceiling vaults, you can still see the faint, beautiful remains of 14th century frescoes by Taddeo Gaddi, who was a student of the great Giotto. But hold on, our tour isn't over just because we're leaving the church. Let's step back outside, because the basilica doesn't stand alone. Nope, it's the centerpiece of a much larger fortified complex, which includes the bishop's palace, a monastery, and a very, very famous bell tower. Oh man, this bell tower has an incredible story. After the original one collapsed, a new one was started in 1524. But then, in 1529, came the siege of Florence, and guess who was in charge of the city's defenses? None other than Michelangelo himself. He turned this unfinished tower into an artillery post, and to protect it from enemy cannon fire, he brilliantly wrapped it in mattresses. I'm not kidding. This amazing historic tower was literally saved by bedding. You can't make this stuff up. And you can see that history of conflict everywhere you look. The whole complex is surrounded by defensive walls. They were first thrown up in a huge hurry by Michelangelo during that same siege, and later beefed up by Duke Cosimo I the Medici. He basically turned this sacred hill into a formidable fortress to protect the city. So there you have it. From a martyr carrying his own head, to a zodiac that tracks the stars, to a bell tower defended with mattresses, San Miniato al Monte is a place where every single stone tells a story. For 1,000 years, it has watched over Florence, a timeless smile on the face of the city, which really just leaves one question. What stories will it tell in the next 1,000?